If I asked you what one patient was worth in your practice, could you answer that without guessing? Because how you answer that will determine whether you grow or stay stuck. I'm Dr. Kala Hewlett, over 15 years as a practice owner, multiple locations, and millions in annual revenue, and I'm here to share with you some of the most valuable lessons I've learned along the way. Today we're going to talk about LTV, or lifetime value. This is something that for years I actually calculated incorrectly, and even for a longer period, I didn't even know why I should be calculating it. So today we're going to talk about three things: what it is, why it's important for you to know, and how to calculate it. So let's start with what it is. Lifetime value is the gross revenue per patient that your practice generates. That means after the cost of delivery and the cost of goods sold is factored in, what is the gross revenue that you have per patient? Now, why is that even important to know? Well, there's several reasons. I'm going to highlight just three today. One, it lets you work backwards to determine your personal income goals. So if you know there's a certain amount of revenue that you want to take home in personal income as a practice owner, well, then you can work backwards, because when you know what the gross revenue is per patient, well, then you can multiply that by the number of patients needed to be able to create that overall top line revenue after expenses are factored in. Now you can do the math and determine exactly how many new patients you need to be able to take home the income that you want for your personal family. Now, another reason is it lets you know, are you on or off target for your industry? For some practices, when I sit down and do the math with them, they're surprised because they said, well, gosh, I thought I was bringing in a lot more patient than I actually was. And so again, are you on target, off target? And then what are the course corrections you need to make to get back on target if you're off target? And number three, it's one of the key stats that a buyer will look at when they want to evaluate and potentially buy your practice. This is something that I learned over the past few years. I got into selling practices, mergers, acquisitions. Again, I didn't have these numbers down until I actually learned from people much smarter than I am. And so a lot of docs I know, and even some of the clinics that we're able to acquire, because they didn't know this metric and weren't measuring it, and it was actually too low, we were able to acquire at a clinic at a much lower rate simply because they weren't maximizing their LTV. So again, when you know your numbers, you can make your practice more valuable. All right, now how to calculate it. There's multiple formulas out there. I'm going to show you the most basic one that is the easiest to implement. And this is the one that I currently use because it's easy to implement, it's easy to calculate, and it still gives me an overall snapshot of what's happening in the practice. So to calculate it, we're going to do your 90-day total revenue. All sources, 90 days, take your total top line collected revenue. You're going to subtract your 90-day cost to deliver. Now, what is your cost to deliver? That is, if you have cost of goods sold, if you have therapy equipment, if you have supplements, if you have medications, if you have regenerative medicine products, pretty much anything that you have to purchase that you then deliver to the patient for their care. Also in the cost of delivery is the salary associated with that. So if you have a doctor that you're paying, or if you are the doctor, you need to factor in your salary, not your distributions and your above average take-home pay, but would be the average salary that a doctor would be compensated, whether that's yourself or someone you're paying. If you have a medical assistant, if you have a front desk who's primarily involved in patient care, again, anything with cost to deliver. What is not factored into cost to deliver is your rent. If you have marketing expenses that are not associated with delivering the actual care, don't factor those in. Okay, so again, it's just the actual cost to deliver, meaning products as well as payroll. So once you get that number, then you'll divide it by the number of new patient starts you've had over that same 90-day window. And that will give you your overall LTV. All right, so here's an example. Let's say a clinic over a 90-day window, if they collected $300,000. That's an average of $100,000 a month. Maybe some months were higher or lower, but 30-day collected revenue was $300,000. And their cost to deliver was $75,000 over that same 90-day window. Payroll cost, cost of goods sold, all factored into that. That equals $225,000. And let's say this practice averaged 20 new patients per month that started care. Not consultations, but patients that actually started care and said, yes, I want to be a patient, and began some form of treatment or program in your practice. So we'll divide that by 60. Again, that'd be 20 times 3 months. That gives us a total of $3,750 of LTV. Now, is that number good? Is that number bad? Is it high or is it low? It really depends on your specific industry, because once you know what's right for your industry, then you know, okay, is this good or is this bad? But no matter what it is, know the higher this number, the better it's going to be for your practice. The more valuable that a patient is, the less of them you need to have a really thriving, successful practice. And if you need help calculating this, just shoot me a message. I'd be glad to help walk you through these steps one-on-one to help you be able to properly calculate your LTV and be able to help your practice grow to the next level.